All right, welcome to next episode of Dim Lights and Stiff Drinks, Dive Bars of Seattle. And we've got this podcast here for exploring different dive bars, historical venues, historical drinking establishments here in the local Seattle area. We're documenting those live bars with a great backstory, interesting history behind them. But we're not just talking about these bars. No. We're coming to you live from the actual establishments.
Creaky door, you hear it?
Creaky door and all, that's right.
That's not in someone's living room.
Yep, we're not bullshitting. So, for this episode, we are here at the Blue Moon Tavern in the beautiful University District in northern part of Seattle, just on the doorsteps of the University of Washington, where a lot of us are alumni.
Really? Are you alumni?
I am, aren't you?
No, St. Mary's College of California.
Brad?
Of course I'm.
Yes.
Husky.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
50% of us. Come on, keep up, Lou.
Is that even a real college, Lou? Is that like the University of Arizona? I've never heard of that.
No, it's a private Catholic school.
Three-week
California.
mailing
The Bay
courses.
Area.
You get
Ever
your...
heard of it? Seattle's like Bay Area Light. You should have heard of it.
All right, well, a good segue. Joining us, as always, to my left here is Sweet Lou and Stash Panda Brad,
Stash Panda.
Bob the producer,
Jay Dizzle.
I'm Jay Dizzle, apparently. And, we're here at the Blue Moon. Brad, I was hoping you could maybe give us a little bit of history of this illustrious drinking establishment that we're in, a very iconic dive bar in the Seattle area.
This is a very iconic place, yeah, and I'm ready to drop some knowledge on you guys. Okay, so going back to the very beginning, this building that we're sitting in right here was originally an auto garage. 4 months after the repeal of Prohibition, a man by the name of Hank Reverman purchased the space and converted it into a drinking establishment, opening for business in April of 1934. That makes the Blue Moon the first and oldest tavern in the U District. When it first opened, its clientele was mostly blue-collar workers and college students from the nearby UW. The tavern's working-class origins were best summarized in a quote from one of the former owners, Gustav Helthaler, who said, "From its beginnings, the Blue Moon has appealed to those appalled by the men in gray flannel suits."
Gray flannel suits?
That's quite a quote, isn't it? Yeah.
Gray, is that like Men in Black or what? Gray flannel suits?
Gray flannel suits.
I imagine like track suits, like jogging suits. What the hell is?
Well, gray flannel suit is like, a nice three-piece suit.
All right,
That's what
okay.
kind of three-piece suits.
Well, say his name again. Gustav Klimt?
Gustav Helthaler.
Hellthaler, yeah. There's a good bar.
There's a good bar owner name.
Yeah.
And,
Hangs out with
the intent of the quote is, guys in three-piece suits, this isn't the place for them. This isn't, this is a working-class bar.
Guys in the Sean John tracksuits is not for them.
Right. So when Prohibition was repealed in 1933, the Washington State Liquor Control Board was quickly formed and instituted a number of laws that governed the sale and consumption of alcohol. These were known as Blue Laws. One of the original Blue Laws was that no alcohol could be sold or served within 1 mile of a college campus. As it just so happens, the Blue Moon here
Are we like 1.2?
1.2 exactly, 1 mile. So it was just out of that 1 mile stretch.
Cop out there with a tape measure.
Yeah. So they
That's
just
where they
barely
positioned
squeaked
it.
in. So,
Kiss me now, coppa.
yeah. So this became, obviously, an instant hit with UW students, particularly members of the football team. So you can imagine a bunch of drunken football players coming here. So they needed some law and order, right? So in order to do that, the owner hired local boxers Freddie Steele, Cecil Payne, and Doc Snell to serve as the bouncers. And what about Doc Snell? Like when you picture a bouncer from the 1930s whose name is Doc Snell, what do you picture? I picture a brawny, bald dude with a handlebar mustache who's rated-ish,
This is a mob dude. Yeah, he's
rated
take you out. You don't fuck with him.
Yeah.
He's going to take you out. Yeah.
Don't even look at him the wrong
Concrete
way.
shoes, buddy.
I mean, Doc Snell. That just sounds like a guy who's going to kick your ass, right?
Well, the guy whose last name is Payne We'll also
Too.
kick your ass.
Or Freddie Steele. Oh, I mean, that's quite a roster of names. Yeah.
Which do you want? Doc, Steel, or Payne?
Or Pain. I wonder if they let people decide. They're like,
Who do you want to be fucked up by? Your choice.
So the original owner eventually sold the Blue Moon in 1940, and it has been under several different owners since then. With these different owners brought changes in its clientele over the years. Starting in the 1950s, the owners began welcoming an assortment of radicals, artists, writers, journalists, and poets. And the Blue Moon became a popular hangout for the beatniks in the 1950s, followed by the hippies in the 60s. With this, a number of different famous writers have visited the Blue Moon over the years. This includes...
Please be Kerouac. Please be Kerouac.
He's on there.
Really?
Is there any others?
Whoa.
So there's Theodore Roethke, I think I'm pronouncing his name right, Richard Hugo, the Hugo House, we've heard of that, Dylan Thomas, the famous poet, Allen Ginsberg, famous beat poet, Jack Kerouac, Lou, Tom Robbins, do you guys know who Tom Robbins is? Even Cowgirls Get the Blues.
Yeah.
And Ken Kesey,
Wow.
of Ken Kesey and the Merry Pranksters.
Yeah.
That's
Quite a roster.
That's quite a roster. As a result of this famous list of patrons, the Blue Moon became known as the clubhouse for Seattle's countercultural scene of the 1960s. A popular story claims that sometime in the late 60s, Tom Robbins tried to call the artist Pablo Picasso in Barcelona from a payphone inside the Blue Moon. Supposedly, Robbins got through to Picasso, but the artist refused to accept the overseas calling charges.
He called him collect.
But I guess he made contact.
That'll be $85.
Click. Also, so Seattle's first kind of alternative weekly was known as the Helix. It started in the 1960s, and it was kind of like the stranger of its time. It just documented the countercultural scene that was happening back then.
Here's what's playing at the movies. Here's the plays that are happening. Here's some
I don't even think it did
shows to go to.
poetry readings and, you know,
slams.
and essays about how the war's like so messed up and all that kind of stuff, what you would picture from the hippies. Now, the founders of the Helix later founded historylink.org, which I write for as a contributing writer. So that was kind of cool.
Look at those hippies. They got some shoes. They got their shit together.
They know
They're
their history
official now.
Yeah. By the 1970s, the Blue Moon had sunk into decline. At that time, it was owned by a one-time bartender, Fast Eddie McWhinney. That's another great name, Fast Eddie McWhinney.
Another guy to kick your ass. You want Doc
Or to,
or
like,
Strong or Steel?
Take all your
or-
money. To me, it sounds like a bookie. Fast Eddie McWhinney.
Yeah, why was he
You wanna-
fast? What was he fast at?
I don't know. So anyway, its heyday as being the center of Seattle's counterculture had come and went. Hard drugs had replaced the more peaceful drugs of the 60s, and so it lost its luster. And most of its revenue, too. Developers wanted to, quote-unquote, redevelop the property into something else, but these efforts were curtailed by community activists, including Walt Crowley, who would later co-found HistoryLink. And he was also the guy that founded the Helix. Thanks to this community activism, the Blue Moon survived. In the early 80s, the Blue Moon was once again up for sale, and once again there was talk of redeveloping the space. But luckily, it was purchased by a local outfit known as Three Fools, Inc.
Three Fools
Inc. Just who you want owning your property, right? But they refurbished the bar in time for its 50th anniversary in 1984.
Nice.
In 1990, the Blue Moon was once again threatened with demolition by a developer who wanted to purchase it and build condos. This generated a spirited public campaign to save it by convincing the City of Seattle's Landmark Preservation Board to designate the Blue Moon as a cultural landmark. The effort had broad public and media support, but the landmark designation failed on a tie vote on March 7, 1990. Despite its failure to secure landmark status, some sort of a settlement was reached with the owner in which the Blue Moon's lease was extended to 2034. So
Okay, so do the math, hippie. How many more years we got?
13.
All
We
right.
got another 13 years.
All right.
And so if it makes it,
Hurry up and drink.
well,
Can
here's
I
the thing: if it
jump
makes
in?
it to 2034, that'll
Yeah.
be its 100th anniversary.
Oh,
Started in 1934.
nice.
So let's hope it makes it. I mean,
Yeah.
that would be pretty awesome, right? Be here for its 100th birthday.
To give the listeners some background, where we're at, this is what's called in real estate highest and best use. We're on the corner of the
Oh, yeah.
busiest arterials in Seattle and the freeway.
Yeah.
And this
45th
should be-
I-5.
Yeah,
This should be a 10-story 200 unit with ground floor retail
Right.
shops, and it's a shitty little bar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And as I've documented, there have been a lot of developers over the years that have been licking their chops over,
Yeah.
building just what you just
I shouldn't
described.
say shitty little bar because it's beautiful, but to their eyes, the
But to their eyes,
developers
yeah.
are like, "You're kidding me!
Yeah.
This should be worth $500 million. And
God
it's worth
intended condos
20?
to be here.
Yeah. Well, let's just hope it makes it to its 100th year anniversary. That'd be awesome. So, some fun facts. Technically, the Blue Moon can no longer legally be considered a tavern since they now serve alcohol. But everyone still calls it the Blue Moon Tavern. Who cares? There was actually an earlier Blue Moon Tavern a few blocks from here on 45th and Roosevelt, and it opened about a year before this one. As the story goes, the original founder of this Blue Moon bought the sign from the original place back when he was setting this up as a bar, and he liked the design of the sign so much that they decided to call themselves a Blue Moon Tavern as well.
So what happened to the other Blue Moon?
They just
like,
went out of business.
vaporized?
Yeah, they opened
that
right
a bar, too?
when they started allowing people to sell beer again after that
Wow.
Colin Harrison Act I've told you guys about.
All right.
And they lasted about a year, and for whatever reason they went out of business, but they had that original Blue Moon sign.
So there's like dual tavern history merging.
Yeah, yeah. The Blue Moon was one of the rare bars outside of the Central District in Seattle to serve African-American servicemen during World War II. The famous author Thomas Pynchon, I don't know if I'm pronouncing his name right, who wrote Gravity's Rainbow. Did you guys ever read that? That's one of those like
Never
really
read it.
dense, thick books that if you're smart, you're supposed to have read.
Oh, gotcha.
I had it on my bookshelf, but
Oh, they definitely didn't
confession,
read
I
it.
never
No,
read it.
no,
No.
Picked it up a couple times, read the first
It's like, wow, this book's really heavy.
Yeah.
I'm going to put it down now.
It's one of those books. Supposedly he came here a lot, and apparently, according to rumor, wrote Gravity's Rainbow, at least a big portion of it here in the bar. According to legend, who knows?
But more importantly, what was he drinking?
I don't know. But as the book opens,
We should write the guy.
it opens with
He's the
a...
famous recluse, right?
yes, exactly.
He did a guest spot on The Symptoms where they put a paper bag on his head.
Yeah,
Because
that's him.
He's never talked to the press. He's never done an interview.
Him and the
he's
guy
a
who wrote
total
Catcher in the
recluse.
Rye.
Oh, yeah.
Can't think of his name right now, but yeah.
Salinger.
Salinger.
Salinger,
Thank you,
yeah.
J.D. Salinger,
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah, they're
Another
the same.
famous reclusive. Yeah.
So, yeah, that was his cool guest appearance. Like, he
Yeah.
did one public thing, and it was as The Simpsons, and they
Yeah.
put a bag on the character's head when they animated it.
No, when you Google his name, there's supposedly one photo of him, but it's in doubt if it's even really him or not. But there's only like one photo of him on the internet of Thomas Pynchon,
Oh, wow.
and nobody even knows for sure if it's even really him. So he's really reclusive.
He hardly ever posts on his Facebook account. Yeah,
Exactly.
it's crazy.
So that's the history of this place. What say you, gentlemen?
We might have said a new bar, and that's pretty fucking cool history.
I mean, that's a pretty cool
That's pretty-
roster of writers.
See
and
what I did
artists and
there?
stuff
A
that have
new
been here.
bar.
Oh, I see what you did
no,
there.
Sorry.
I see what you did
Totally
there.
accidental. No, that was great. You started off by talking about how this place was just barely 1 mile from a university.
Yeah.
But what you failed to mention is that we are about a block from a church and right around the corner from an elementary school. So
Oh, okay.
it's kind of wonky liquor laws at the time. Yeah.
Well, it kind of reminds me of some of the cannabis laws, right? Because wasn't that, I don't know if it's still the rule, but you couldn't open a dispensary so many feet or miles or whatever from like schools and stuff, right?
Right.
I don't know if
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
still the rule, but
Probably.
Yeah, I'm sure it is.
Yeah.
yeah.
All right, the band's coming in right now.
Get
We
the
got
door for
drummers
the
here.
get the door for the guy holding the big drums.
The drummer's
Yeah.
friend helping.
Nice turquoise.
Nice.
Well,
That's a cool
actually,
color.
that's an interesting point that maybe we should talk about. Like, this bar's closed
Yeah.
right now.
Oh, yeah, give
we
me
have
some background.
we
Tell me
we
what's
have
going on.
we happen to be here through the graciousness of the bar owner.
Emma.
But
Emma,
technically
yeah.
technically closed. Not going to be opening up for another couple of hours. But this is from what I understand, first time opening in many months.
Yeah.
Due to COVID and like complete shutdown. Right.
Yeah, so
we're
we-
pretty epic moment right here.
And kind of setting the stage for the listeners, so we basically have the place to ourselves, with the exception they have some musicians kind of rambling in and out, setting up their equipment for later tonight. But other than that,
Live
there's-
music starting in about 3 hours.
we got the place to ourselves, which is pretty amazing. And we opened the first tap. They put in a new tap,
right, yeah.
a
Oh,
beer
really?
tap, and
Oh,
Brand spanking new.
brand
Are you
spanking
guys-
new. And
what you guys drinking?
We're gonna go there.
Well,
I guess that's a good segue.
What are we drinking? Well, yeah, that
you got the first beer off the new tap.
this is pretty crazy, right? Like you think of a dive bar, you don't think of a super swanky, fancy looking. What is this? 12 tap handle pulls with shiny brass and stuff, right? Like it's
yeah. I don't remember what they had
pretty
before, but it wasn't
badass,
that.
but it's a little unusual for a traditional dive bar.
Yeah.
Bottle shop or something.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
And I happen to know this bar because one of my wife's best friends was a distributor for a long time for a company. And this is a serious beer bar. So he's always like, hey, I've got this cask of this on tap. Do you guys want it? And so you can always find these. They're always fully
Killer.
stocked.
Yeah.
And you'll even find some once-off seasonals and some killers here. So it's a beer bar. They've
Yeah.
always been serious about their
Yeah.
beer.
Yeah.
At least since Bill.
We talked about that in the other episode too. That's very Seattle, right? Like this is a dive bar, but there's some awesome fucking beers on tap, right? Like this
Yeah.
isn't like Schlitz and Bud Light and shit like that. I mean, yes, they have Bud Light at the very end of the tap, which good for them. They got some Rainier, that's cool stuff. But the
it's
rest of
mostly
the
craft
selection
brews.
is like awesome microbrews, right?
With a few beers I haven't even heard of.
Totally.
Yeah.
And we started off like, what you drinking? I am drinking Landwick IPA from Triple Horn Brewery,
As am I.
which is an amazing IPA that
good,
I
yeah.
have.
I've
I
never
have
heard of this.
Yeah.
Any of those words. Say them again.
Triple Horn Brewery,
Landwick?
Landwick IPA, which I have never seen on draft anywhere ever.
No, I haven't heard of it.
So the fact, fantastic beer. The fact that they got it here on draft is pretty fucking cool.
And you got the first one?
The first one of the new taps, yeah.
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 All right, give me a sip.
Sorry, I just killed it.
Cerveza numero uno. And it had a really cool draft handle, too, the beer that we chose.
Yeah, for sure.
Had kind of a Celtic design, but
Here, give me a sip. Landwick.
What do you think?
it's a hoppy.
It's a seasonal. It's rich.
It's rich, yeah.
Yeah, it's super good though. It's
Yeah,
so
very good.
fresh. Like that's like
Yeah, very good stuff.
nice.
What are you drinking, Lou?
Jameson on the rocks.
Good old standby, yep.
You and me, Bunk. You on the Henny, me on the Jamie. That's a Wire reference for anybody. Bunk
I
and
got it.
McNulty.
Confirmation
Yep.
of why we cannot call this, technically cannot call it a tavern. Full bottle.
Yeah. Yep.
Good stuff. What's top shelf, Lou? Did you happen to check it out?
It's kind of like a
Costco,
one-shelf beer. Maybe there's like the Woodbridge Estates. It's mostly wine on the top
true
shelf.
dive bar fashion. It's not
Yeah,
top shelf.
this isn't
Bottom
like.
shelf.
Can I have a shot of the Pappy?
Happy Van Winkle.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's no Pappy Van Winkle here. This is, yeah.
Pappy. That's the kind of stuff you'd put in a safe.
Heirloom.
Yeah.
Sometimes we
All right.
talk about
Somebody say something.
what's on the jukebox, but I'm looking around.
I don't believe this place does have a jukebox. I'm pretty sure.
Looking around, there are not one but two ATMs and no jukebox.
No jukebox.
jukebox.
But they have live music.
They
I
do
guess
have live
that's kind of
music.
where
have,
they
right
make
just
up for it.
outside of our view is a great little stage, which reminds me of a 3/4 scale crocodile. Know what I'm talking about?
Yeah,
Right?
that's actually a pretty
Right?
good description. Yeah.
But that's another episode right there.
Have you ever seen a show here before?
I have.
Have
yeah,
you?
many years ago.
anybody
Probably like a
good?
decade ago. Nobody I remember. No,
Okay.
yeah, just some local band that was, they were here and I didn't know they were playing, and I was like, what, $2 cover? No, I'm all right, I guess,
What about you, Lou? Have you ever seen a show here before?
I've seen a ton of hair shows. For actually, the first place I lived in Seattle was like 2 blocks down the road. If you get off on I-5 coming south, and then you can get back on, or it turns into 7th Ave.
Yeah.
I lived in a house down there,
Okay.
and so I've been here a ton of times.
So any memorable shows, anything like awesome that you can remember, or were they all just kind of
No, it's not like David
Garage
Bowie played
bands.
here, Soundgarden showed
I'm
up.
sure at one point though, like I'm sure over the years, like pretty cool artists have played
Actually,
here.
if I'm being honest, they probably have, but all the times I was here, it was like shitty band that couldn't go anywhere else, and they just need a place to practice.
Wait a second. You're asking us, Mr. Historian. You're supposed to do the research of all of like the epic bands that showed up here, like off the bill, and like.
I'm not the music guy. Lou's the music guy.
Oh, yeah, Lou. Come on.
Yeah, that's true. No, it's kind of, this is a starter place. Like if you're a starting band and you need just a stage to play where nobody's going to give a shit, this is where you go.
It's like the kind of shows you'd see at the Comet. Have you ever seen a show
exactly.
there? You know, like some neighborhood.
But this place is actually kind of
band.
set up for a show. There's the whole area that Brad talked about earlier where this was a garage. You could see that was the bay door, and they pulled the cars in here.
Yeah.
And instead of cars...
The cars played here?
The cars. The cars
My
played
best
here.
friend's girl.
And Gary Newman played here,
Yeah.
singing Cars. And, so one of my first...
Well, maybe a dance floor if it weren't for that stupid pool table.
But yeah, like in terms of... Does this qualify as a dive bar, Jeremy?
Well, you know, that's something we've talked about a couple of episodes before, and we'll probably talk about it many times again ad nauseum for sure, right?
Yeah.
But, well, yeah, because there's some great tactical stuff, right? Like,
look at the tables.
yeah, give us an experiment. Give us an experience here. Look.
I mean, you can.
No.
They've been carved into a shitload. Like,
Yeah.
There's so many initials and carvings.
And every table's like that.
Yeah, we're sitting in a hole
These
of
tables
wood
have
that's
not been replaced in.
No, and it's a
Give me a
series
number,
of
Brad. How
booths, and
50
every
years.
booth
50
is just plastered with years and decades worth of stickers that
Jeremy,
people have
read 'em
plastered
off.
on here.
What stickers are in our booth?
Knick-Knack Records, Verbal Tip, Phased, an old Budweiser sticker, which is pretty fucking cool. That's actually like a beer bottle label that somebody lacquered onto the table, which is pretty fucking cool. A shit ton of graffiti. Your phone number for a good time, Lou. Which nobody has removed despite the... let's see,
My
lock
phone
them
hasn't rang in
up.
25 years.
Vagina?
Yep.
Oh, Planned Parenthood sticker. Okay, cool. It's a classy joint. Yeah, very...
All
Code Green, yep. Some
Yeah.
more recent pot stickers. I would say qualifies in a good way. Dive bar, right?
Yeah.
But, you know, I was thinking about this the other day. It's like we had a couple episodes we talked about, like, well, what the hell is a dive bar? And how do you define that kind of shit, right? But I was thinking,
This is it.
Yeah,
The
for
table
sure. We're
hasn't
here.
Been cleaned in 50 years.
Yeah, we are definitely here, without question, for sure. But I wanted to get you guys' opinion on something like, instead of talking about, like, well, how do you define dive bar? Like, what is a dive bar? I was thinking about, like, what isn't a dive bar, right?
That's a good question.
Maybe it's easier to kind of define it if we say, okay, if you got this, you ain't a dive bar,
Well,
right?
I think we should just start out with there has to be kind of like an age limit. Like, you know, if you opened a couple years ago, you can't be a dive bar, no matter how grungy and stuff you look inside.
Yeah,
what would you say the time
can't
limit has
model
to be?
yourself
At least,
as a
what,
dive bar. It's like,
20,
it doesn't
25,
happen
30 years? What's the minimum before you can...
And I think it's like 50,
That long?
60, 75. Yeah.
50?
Yeah. Think about it. Tell me a dive bar that's less than 50 years old.
I don't know, maybe.
They don't exist.
I'm trying to
Oh,
think.
we're gonna get some
But
backlash
yeah,
on
I
that
can
one.
tell you a little.
Yeah, that might be
Well,
controversial.
we should see if we can find some examples of good ones that are, you know.
Yeah.
Well,
20
in terms of the
years.
where we're at bar location, growing up, having moved here in my first Seattle neighborhood, you'd think the U District is, okay, I should do where we're at, right?
That's a good segue.
Don't break the place.
Well, hold on.
Jesus.
Let's finish this conversation first about the dive bar.
Oh my God.
That's going to have to be
Wow,
edited
okay.
out for technical
Yeah,
difficulties.
we're here breaking the joint.
Yeah.
That's kind of our shtick. We come here, we drink, bust the shit up,
Bull is like a...
get kicked out.
Lou's like a bull
never
in a
never
china
come here
shop.
ever again. Done. That's an episode.
Brawl.
All right,
night
so
we got
Brad, what do you want to
86.
do instead?
Well, let's
Age.
finish our discussion about the dive bar, that whole issue. So you're saying 50
Okay.
years.
Yeah, I said 50 years.
I'm saying 40. I think you could still get away with being called a dive bar if you're 40. I don't know.
Well, this should be
40
something we
years
should.
has some...
This should be something we should definitely revisit, like 4, 5, 10 episodes later.
Yeah.
Where we've got some research under our belts. We've got quite a few cadre of places we've visited,
Yeah.
and we can like list them out. I'll make a spreadsheet.
There you go. There
and
you
we
go.
can talk about
Excel?
like
Are
the
you gonna
age.
use Excel?
Totally. And we're gonna like list like, okay, these places, dive, yes, no, dive, not really a dive, no. We're throwing that one off the list, and then we'll like get the ages of them. We'll have the full history
Okay.
of them, and we'll put that theory to the test.
Okay.
Yeah, because I think that would be fun. I like 50. It's a nice round number, but I'm thinking we're gonna find
A newer dive
30
bar? Yeah, I think so too. I think so too.
years. It
Yeah.
still qualifies.
Yeah.
That's not going to happen because
Oh.
all of you can look at our list, Barnoffs, Solis, blah 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 blah. It's all plus 50. The number's actually 75. I mean, we're at the cabin. That's 100.
Yeah.
We were at Daryl's.
That's true.
That's almost another 100.
Well, maybe
1920s.
That's a problem.
We are ageist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
you just won't see it in a city because anything that was built in
Newfangled bar.
Yeah. Can't be too new. What else? So aside from the age, what else constitutes a dive bar?
Well,
What other elements have to be in place?
this booth that we're sitting in, just this booth alone qualifies, right?
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah,
I think so.
You gotta smell the wood. You gotta look at the graffiti. You gotta look at
Yeah.
like 50 plus years of butt imprints in this
Yeah.
veneer here.
Yeah.
And like, yep, that qualifies.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's also the literary hangover is around us. Like, to describe it, this is a high-backed booth. It's all old wood, solid. It's about 4 feet high above your butt, and then on top of it is a mantelpiece, and it's stacked with books. Jeremy, read us some titles of the books up there.
Okay, let's see what we got here. How to landscape your own home. We got some how-tos. Too much is never enough. St. Paul Michael Grant. Annual.
What are all those black?
1973 annual Maggle.
Well, even better, they have a bunch of photos, I think, of famous writers and personalities that have been here over the years, over the actual bar.
Poets Market, Wonders of Italy, Mad Magazine.
Mad Magazine. Where do you see Mad Magazine?
Arthur D. Newman.
It's the book of Mad Magazine about the 60s. That's
pretty cool.
That's pretty fucking cool.
But to me, there's something...
Poets Market. Yeah.
There's like certain internal requirements that also need to be in place in order for a bar to be called a dive bar.
Do you have to have a big collection of books in the dive bar? I would say no.
No, most dive bars we
definitely
do.
not.
This
yeah.
is more of a literary dive bar. This is a much more literary and probably
poetic.
And poetic and cultured than your typical dive bar.
a little more culture.
It's a book
Yeah.
share, too. I'm sure people grab these books and leave books.
Yeah. I'm
Let's
sure.
read a couple more of the stickers on the wall. This one says, lobotomies for Republicans. It's the law. And they were thinking that back 40 years ago because that sticker's so faded.
Yeah.
We've got the Timberlake Carpentry Rules, the bomb, no U.S. fascist regimes, capacity 99%, triple exclamation point, papas and beers. Yeah.
Well, and also...
These colors don't run the world. And it's a picture of the U.S. flag. And then another one says, Bush. And on top of it is an LL and an IT. So it says bullshit. And then you got I never thought I'd miss Nixon. With a smaller sticker put on top of it that says, I vomited. Yeah, this
Well,
is a total lefty literary heaven.
dive bar. Yeah,
It's
for
awesome.
sure, for sure. It goes back. And it started becoming that way in the 50s, when the beatniks first started hanging out here. The other thing with the dive bar is I feel like, the 5-second rule. Like if you drop something, you got 5 seconds to like pick it up, and then it's all good.
ooh,
But in a
yeah,
dive bar, the
ooh.
5-second rule goes out the
Well, you
window.
know-
there's a 0-second rule, right?
But that totally agree.
If you drop your wedding ring, you're like,
if-
I'm sorry, babe, I lost my ring.
It's permanently stuck to the. I can't remove it. But if you zoom in and look at just the floor, you might say this ain't a fucking dive bar, right? Because like you said, this used to be a garage, right? So what are we looking at? What are we looking at? Concrete
yeah.
floors. And what's super popular these days?
Concrete.
Well, cleaning and polishing concrete.
Yeah.
Right. Polished concrete, super popular.
But this is OG concrete.
Clearly, this concrete has been cleaned in the last decade or so.
Yeah.
Which I don't know, not so divey, but we'll give it a pass. Yeah. It's
Yeah.
actually pretty cool because it's almost black, which means you really don't know what the hell's on the floor. It looks like it could be clean, but it
Well,
probably
you have
isn't.
decades
Yeah,
of
it probably is not.
spills and who knows what else
Yeah.
that have happened here. So,
DeSoto oil dripping on there in the
yeah,
corners. Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Yeah, I can. From a real estate perspective, this probably will also require some environmental remediation, is what they call it. Like, this was a garage at one point. There's a ton of oil that's
Yeah.
in here. They probably had underground storage tanks.
probably.
And so,
They're probably still here. They're probably buried
yeah.
under the
But
foundation.
whoever's going to develop it will.
Yeah, he's gonna.
That cost is going to be small relative.
There's gonna
to
be
the
some,
billions they make.
unplanned surprises once they start digging this place up.
Jack Kerouac's bones.
So what else, gentlemen? Anything else that you see in here that kind of screams dive bar to you?
I think everything we just said.
Yeah.
The lighting's good. The lighting, little on the brighter side for dive, right? Little on the brighter side for dive, but it's still it's historic looking. You've got some old-fashioned kind of lights and stuff.
When if you look at the wiring,
Not
like
super
there's
intense.
like a lot of
Exposed
extension
wiring.
cords, exposed wiring and
Yeah,
stuff, and
yeah.
that just adds to the kind of the ambience of the place.
And the ceiling. Okay, we talked about the floor, right? Take
Yeah.
a look at the ceiling.
Yeah,
and
all
what's
these
the
old
first thing?
posters.
What's the first thing that screams out at you about the ceiling as a whole?
Oh, all the
Just
wonderful
decades-
posters, man.
well-
Look at the Wolfman poster.
Behind those posters, though, are decades of smoking.
Yeah,
Right?
for sure, for sure.
100%. I mean, those ceilings used to be gleaming white at some point.
Yeah.
And now
Yeah.
they are.
That's a great observation.
Now they are
Jeremy, because
really,
those-
really brown.
To describe it, the ceiling here is covered with posters from movies that came out in the RKO monster movies that came out in the 30s. That was probably from a revival, but I mean, these posters are 40 years old, 50 years old, and it's this corporate, it was probably white. When did the no smoking in bars thing happen?
Yeah,
it
I
was
was just
like
gonna ask that.
2000, late 90s, right?
Late 90s. Yeah, I think it was like 97, 98.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So this has not been remodeled as evidenced by the...
Yeah. Well, and I guess that's another characteristic of a dive bar is that they don't change a lot. Like they don't refurbish to suddenly be new and updated.
Yeah.
They keep things intact from when they start until the very last days. And this is a good example of this because
Yeah,
as these
the
guys have been
shit-
pointing out, there's just layers of stickers and posters
yeah.
and different photos on the wall and stuff. And they've been here
Signs.
all along, and they're not going to change that.
You only replace and update what you absolutely have to, right?
Yeah.
Not
Yeah.
because what you want to, because you have to.
We're going to show you. When
Yeah.
Wow, good guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They came in here to get laid, and they saw four nerds doing a podcast, and they're like,
Talking about-
"Yeah, we out."
Yeah, we're
Yeah, no, it's not open for business yet. Go down to Earl's on the Ave.
Yeah. Well, anyway, so I think we covered that. So what is the next section?
You want me to do where we're at?
Sure.
All right, we're in the U District.
You had a winter warmer there, Jeremy?
Let's get this on hot mic here. You ready?
We're hot, baby.
Okay.
What, do you need to go to the bathroom or something?
No, I was going to
So-
smoke because I've had a drink and now I need to smoke.
Oh, yeah.
It's okay.
All right.
We're
So
almost at the end.
we talked about what we drinking. What you drinking? We talked about a little bit of Whatcha tap with the fancy new 12 tap horn handle situation going on there, which is pretty fucking cool. But I just gotta fanboy on the selection of beers that this bar has, which is very non-dive bar-y, but also very Seattle at the same time, right?
Okay.
So these guys got, and I even made a list because it's
Yeah, no,
pretty cool.
it's-
So
This is a beer bar.
it is totally,
Like,
totally,
there's-
and there's, I mean,
There's two things on there I've never heard of in my life.
Seattle's
Jeremy's
chock
heard.
full of beer bars, but
Yeah.
there's always some that are above the, what bugs the shit out of me is like a beer bar, like, hey, we got 50 taps or whatever, and you go in, it's the same old shit that you see at every other fucking bar, and you're
Right.
like, okay, great,
Right.
50 of the same shit that, whatever.
Right.
You come here, they got 12 beers, a couple of them are kind of, Bud Light or whatever, and whatever, but the rest of the selection here is really, really good stuff that you're not going to find in other bars, which again, not real dive bar-y, but very kind of Seattle, and especially appropriate for the area. So it's
Yeah.
awesome. So Going down the list, we got Bodhisattva from Georgetown Brewery,
Yep.
which is not unusual because Bodhisattva has just exploded over the last
Yeah.
4 or 5
Pretty
years.
much every
You see
bar
it
has got
fucking
Bodhi.
everywhere,
Yeah.
everywhere.
Yeah.
Same thing
The
with
last
Manny's.
two we were
Manny's
at
Pale Ale
had
right next to it.
Bodhi's and Manny's.
Totally, right?
Yeah.
It's like, what?
Yeah.
So, but awesome beer, so I'm not complaining, but it's just
Right.
weird. Those two beers, Georgetown has just exploded. I think the guy's like, no, somebody, some, I don't know what's going on, but
No, it's red hot.
Bodhi
yeah.
and Manny's Pale everywhere, so they got
Yeah.
them. We got a
Besides
couple.
the cranberry guy.
Right. And we also have something else that is very Seattle, but also very timely. A couple of ciders, local craft ciders on draft, which you're starting to see. No kombucha, thank God. No draft kombucha. That would absolutely kick it out of the dive
Yeah,
bar
I
realm.
think so. I think it would have
Okay,
to, yeah.
but it's also something. It's like, well, we're in Seattle. I wouldn't, I
Yeah.
wouldn't be surprised to see it. But
Yeah.
no. So, but we do
Not
have a couple of
here.
ciders, right?
Yeah.
So. Not all dive bars. In fact, I would say most dive bars not willing to put a cider on tap. We got 2 on tap here. It's cool, very Seattle. It definitely a non-divey kind of thing, but still cool. Landwick,
they're actually high-end ciders.
they're good.
It's
Oh
not
yeah, totally.
White Claw.
Yeah, it's
like,
Woodinville
these are some-
and out of it's good local shit. It's like it's not the
Yeah.
we're not talking
Not
White Claw or
much.
nothing, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Very, very good local craft ciders. Rainier, of course, which is a staple. The Landwick IPA from Triple Horn, we just talked about. Again, really, really rare to see it on tap, even around Seattle, even in the quote unquote beer bars around town. So that's pretty cool. Not one but 2 Jellyfish breweries on tap, which is another fantastic surprise. So Jellyfish, not very common on draft. A fantastic local brewery. 2 of them on draft, which is
Those are
I've
cool
never.
tap handles. Did you notice that?
Super cool. Super cool.
Light up.
Dragon's Tooth staff from Elysian. So again, Elysian, another great
Yeah.
A local success
classic,
story
yeah.
for beers. Not uncommon to see Elysian on tap. In fact, Seattle, you see them all over the place.
Yeah. Although
Dragon's
they did
Tooth
sell
Stout
out to
on-
Anheuser-Busch, but
Right, but still awesome beer. Not
Yeah.
not unhappy to see them.
it's local,
But
it's
Dragon's Tooth Stout from Elysian on tap.
Yeah.
You hardly ever see.
that's true.
Hardly ever see, especially this time of year.
Yeah.
Sometimes you'll see it, kind of getting closer to the holidays and shit. So that very, very, very cool. Also, 10 Barrel Pub Beer, another one that
Oh
is.
yeah, 10 Barrel was at the last bar we were at.
They were
Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
They had
but
IPA there.
specifically the pub, the quote unquote pub beer. They're more like kind of generic, like these session beers were super hot for a
Yep.
few years.
Yep.
But now we're seeing these kind of quote unquote pub beers, which is essentially kind of like a session lager, kind of whatever.
I was gonna say they're lagers, right?
Usually,
Yeah.
yeah.
Unless you're at the cabin, and that means you've buried some beer in your backyard, and you're going to
Steam
ferment and brew it in 7 days, and have it ready for the people.
Steam beer.
Steam beer. Thank you.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, steam beer. So again, very timely, very
Yeah,
popular,
yeah.
but you don't see a lot of them on tap. Especially, you don't
Yeah.
see a lot of those on tap at a dive bar. So
Yeah.
I'm a beer guy myself, so super happy to see all of those, with the exception of Bud Light. Fantastic. Again, you could argue not really divey because it's just too good a stuff, too
Yeah.
good, too local micros, sometimes nanos, right?
Yeah.
But happy to see it. I'll take it any day of the week.
So you give the lineup a thumbs up.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, for sure. Especially since they're brand new, nice, clean lines as well. So
Yeah,
that always
yeah,
helps.
yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
Nice.
Very cool.
Nice.
All right. So
So you want me to tell people where we're at?
Where we at?
yeah,
Where we at, Lou?
where are we at?
We're on the corner of I-5, which goes from Canada to Mexico. And if it goes through Seattle, it's the only road going through here. So we're on the corner of I-5 and 45th, which is Seattle is Denny is 0. So we're 45 blocks above downtown. And this is the major east-west arterial starting to the east side. There's the University of Washington.
Exactly 1.2 miles.
Exactly 1.2 miles.
Yep.
Then you got the freeway. Then you got Wallingford, Fremont, Ballard. And we'll be doing a show next week from Ballard.
The sloop.
So yeah, this is
Yep.
the 5 boroughs of Seattle are U District, Fremont, Ballard, Capitol Hill, Queen Anne.
Yeah.
And
West
then
Seattle.
downtown is maybe a 6th borough, but it doesn't
What
count.
about Pioneer
And West
Square?
Seattle for Bob. Come on, Bob.
West Seattle, thank you.
This Staten Island, right? The Staten Island of Seattle is West Seattle. but it's like incredibly beautiful and way better
Yeah.
than Staten Island.
Well,
So-
there's a couple cool old dive bars there that I'm sure we're going to be visiting.
Yeah, we got some West Seattle dive bars.
Tavern. We got
Yep.
the Pogey.
Yep.
we will.
Yep.
So yeah, when I first moved to town in 1995, this was the first neighborhood I lived in, which I mentioned earlier was right down the road.
I think that's when I first met you, man. You were living in that house you were describing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
in the U District. So at the corner of 45 blocks from downtown and the interstate is University Avenue, which is actually 14th Ave, but they don't call it 14th. It's University Avenue. And since it's the U District, which is pretty cool, like Telegraph Avenue in Berkeley, it's a geared towards college students. So when I first moved here in 95, there were 4 record stores on the Ave, 2 movie theaters,
Yeah.
the Neptune and the Varsity.
Yeah.
And it's basic, and a million restaurants to eat for $6 or less.
Yeah.
Gyro sandwich.
Yeah.
Euros.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, call them out. Euros, Mexican
Big Time
food,
Pizza.
Thai food, Big Time Pizza, Big Time Brewery,
Yeah.
AAA Pizza Mart, Double A Pizza Mart.
Oh, yeah.
Like 2 large pizzas for $12.
I ate good when I was a student going there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just like good food too, like a ton of ethnic food. It's killer. When I first moved here, I came here from a small town, and I came here to the U District, which was kind of a shock because I worked downtown at a professional job, so I dressed like a narc. I had a buttoned-up shirt and a tie,
Clip-on
and
tie.
I'd take the bus because there was no. I worked in the Columbia Tower.
Yeah.
And they only gave day parking to the executives. And so there's no place to park downtown.
So when you're trying to
you had
score
to
weed,
take
you're
the
like,
bus.
hey, can I get a dime bag? And they're like, beat it, narc.
No, I wasn't trying to score weed, but it was the opposite. I looked like a narc, and I was shocked by like, hey, everybody, welcome to Seattle. Here's the bus. And it was like, rock, weed, blow. And I was like, I look like a narc, and it's an open-air drug market. Like, they're just asking everybody if they want drugs. And I was like totally shocked. I came home to my roommates, and I was like, are you kidding me? The cops in this town do not give a shit that there's an open-air drug market on the Ave?
This is the best city ever.
And that's when Lou decided to call Seattle home.
I am never leaving.
Well, that might
Here
be.
we go.
That might be our.
That's our call.
That's our call.
Your time's
Well,
done. Get the fuck out.
But yeah. No, I thought it was crazy, and I asked my roommates, I was like, oh my God, there's an open-air drug market. Are there no cops in this town? And he was like, chilled out, Winnemucca. There's actually crime in this city. So they have real crime to deal with, and they don't care about the comings and goings.
Oh god, here the karaoke starts. So yeah, that's our cue, I think. Yeah, wrap this shit up.
yeah. Well, I think we're getting drowned out. So, you want to like wrap things up?
Well, Bob, what's it sound like over
Sounds
there?
like we should. They're stealing our show.
Unless you want to sing along, Lou. You know this one? No. Okay. All right. Well, that's probably our cue. We can wrap things up. This has been Dim Lights and Stiff Drinks, Seattle Dive Bars. Lou, Jeremy, Brad, and Bob, as usual.
Peace out.
Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next episode.